Hello everyone, it's Karen Burniston here with the class day recording for our March 2023 virtual class. So what we're focusing on this month are 3 of our dies. So we're featuring the surprise cube pop-up, we're featuring the slider box, and we're featuring our Hexagons crosshatch. And the 2 projects we're going to be making in this video from those dies are a slider box, You've Captured My Heart. Inside is going to be 3 surprise cubes, and those are meant to be photo cubes. So I decorated mine with pictures of my dogs, but of course you'll be able to put photos, whatever photos you want on there. So that's going to be our first card, or a project, I guess I should say project. And inside the slider box it says love you. Okay, then our second one is going to feature those hexagons and the surprise cubes in a card format. So we've got this little flippy flappy little closure here to keep the card closed, and then when it opens, wait, let me get it to a good reveal spot. It's going to pop up 3 stacked surprise cubes inside that card, and that's just a fun little hello card, so you'll be able to use that. I mean, you could, change that out and make that Mother's Day or whatever you need a card for, even Easter, something like that. Okay, so the 3 required dice that you had to have to make basically turn your bulk material class kits into the class day baggies, which for you should look something like that, are these 3 dies. And then anything that we used from any of our other die sets to complete the project, if it wasn't one of the 3 required dies, then we pre-cut those items for you. And let me tell you what those dies are. Okay, so here on the first project, we pre-cut for you the Love You. And that came out of our word set 9 love set. So that one has love you, hugs and kisses, and XOXO. And then, okay, well, out of our tiny house pop-up, the only thing we cut out of that is this little tiny hearts right there. So those little tiny hearts, you can see one right there and right there. So that's where those came from. And then on the second card, we have our Flutter charms and our word set 6 summer. So from the Flutter charms, we're using bees and honeycombs and flowers. And then from the word set 6, we've used the word hello. So those are the die sets that we're using in addition to the required dies. And I only mention those, I mean, they're actually on your handout here. They'll tell you which ones we use. Is if you wanted to remake these projects again, then you would know exactly what to purchase. Okay, so speaking of handouts, if you are new to our virtual classes or YouTube classes, the way that these work is you purchase your class kit from either our website, KarenBurniston.com, or from one of our participating stores. And we have 3 for this class that we're making kits. So we sold out of our kits on our website, but those stores may still have some. So if you're watching this today and you're like, oh, I'm interested in making these projects, I would love to purchase a kit, go to our events page on KarenBurniston.com and you'll find the links to those stores and you can contact them and see if they have kits left over. But I mentioned that the kits that we made on our website, we sold out of, and we, of the 4 people making kits, are the only ones who made a mistake. I'm so sorry. Those of you who purchased your kit from KarenBurniston.com, this sheet of cardstock was missing out of your, this kit right here. We're sending it to you. Okay, so if you're watching this today and you hadn't had a chance to do your prep work yet, don't worry, this is coming. Hopefully, if you are doing your projects right now when you're watching this and you haven't got your cardstock yet, you can find something in your stash that you could use temporarily, or to finish your card, and then that'll get replenished. But that green cardstock, that sour apple cardstock, was used for one of the cubes, and then it was used for this hexagon right here. And unfortunately, we left those out of the kit. So I'm so sorry. We're human. We do our best, but sometimes, very rarely, but every once in a while, we do make a mistake. So that's coming to you by mail. You don't even have to request it. It's coming. We're sending them out. Okay. So I still want you to sit here and watch this class today because you can do the majority of this project. You could get 2 of your cubes completely done. This would be the only cube if you really want it to be that exact color green you'd have to wait on. You'll even be able to put, most of this together. You'll just have to wait on stacking your final 2 cubes until you get that cardstock. So still hang out and watch this. Or if you're like, no, I'm not even going to bother until I get my replacement cardstock, this is going to be here. You're going to come right back to this link again, and you'll find this class ready for you to do it whenever you want. Okay, so let's jump in. So what you had to do if you are new to our class kit, so you buy the, I didn't finish that part. I'm sorry. If you you buy a class kit from one of the participating stores or from us, and the way it comes is actually bulk materials. So you're going to get things like strips of cardstock that look like this. Those will not have already been cut down into the pieces you need. You have to do that using the required dies. Okay, so what comes to you when you buy a kit by email is you get these really fancy handouts. And those are great for making these cards again, too. So you have full instructions for both projects. And what these include is your paper pre-cutting instructions, where you cut your papers down and do any scoring or anything you would have to do. And then you go through the die cutting instructions. Okay. And then you stop when you get to class day instructions. And that's what this video is. This video is starting at class day instructions and going onward for both classes, or both projects, I should say. So when you do that, you have a video to guide you along that process. So the YouTube prep video is in the email that you got from whoever you purchased your kit from, or it's listed right here in your handout. It'll say the YouTube prep video, and then you just type that into YouTube and then you'll get the prep video, and you can make your kit while just following along with me. So if you didn't know that there was that step before you get to this video, then just go ahead and pause this one, go do that other one, come back to this one when you're ready to put your projects together. Okay, because by the time you get to this video, you should have completed the paper pre-cutting and die cutting for both projects, and then we're going to go on with class day instructions. Card one, or project one, I should say, for this class is going to be the slider box photo cubes card, or project. So let me put this away. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just use this tray. It's a gift from a friend to hold all my pieces. Oops. See, I gotta say, those of you who watched the prep work video, these Ziploc bags I chose are like not my favorites because I can't get my pieces out of them. All right, so we're going to start by constructing here. Let me let this fly anywhere here. We're going to work by starting with the slider box. So slider box is a great little die set that makes this little drawer and sleeve, okay? It does not have to be only filled with photo cubes. And when you go watch the assembly video on this die set, since you own it, you may want to go watch the assembly video on that. Then you're going to see other ideas and stuff for using it. But yeah, you can just fill it with candy or little love notes or trinkets or whatever, you know, it doesn't have to include a pop-up, but it is perfectly sized to hold those surprise cubes. So when you do want to have that fun reveal, you can fit 3 fully decorated surprise cubes in that drawer, you know, and then it makes for a fun reveal when someone opens it. Okay, so the drawer had, this one you cut using the die set out of that sour apple cardstock. And a bone folder is really helpful for finding these folds. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to fold this up into a drawer. So starting with the ones that kind of just go around the perimeter of the drawer. Okay. That's pretty heavy cardstock. Now, it would not have to be heavy cardstock, especially if you're planning on adding decorator paper. Let's get that drawer out. Look how we're going to add decorator paper to all sides. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be the heaviest cardstock, but 100-pound smooth is a great choice if you have it, and that's what we're using on this one. There is a fold right here that will fold in. Basically, every single fold in the piece is folding away from you. So tabs fold away from you. Okay, tab on this side, tab, ooh, get that right on the line there. Okay, and then there's one more fold right here, folds to the inside. Okay, so now we've worked all of the folds in the piece, all right? And then before we put it together, we want to get our ribbon in. So in your pre-cuts, now I don't know for sure that's this exact color of ribbon because I just told the kit makers to choose something that coordinated. So you might get some other pretty color or texture of ribbon. I'm not sure what you got, but you should have a piece of ribbon that's about 5 inches long. And that's plenty. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put a loop in that ribbon, and then we're going to pinch it and get it through from the outside of the drawer, okay, where we can pin down the ends of that ribbon on the inside of the drawer. And, you know, you can decide how big you want that loop to be. you know, because you could always cut off some ribbon if you wanted that loop smaller and you had too much ribbon for inside, you could cut a little bit of it off. But you basically just need to pin it down in there. Now, sometimes I'll just use like a tape runner for that because I'm just trying to pin that down. But then I usually use glue for the rest of it. So tape runner's being a little difficult on me there. Okay, so I'm going to take each end, that ribbon, and then I'll pull the excess out. Okay, so then now what we're going to do is we're going to bring these tabs in and then wrap this over the top. So basically the tabs are going to get sandwiched, and then we're not going to see the ribbon ends anymore. Okay, so you know, various ways you can do that. Like I said, I tend to use glue, but you could, for instance, use a little tape runner. Oh gosh, I should have chosen a better tape runner. Wait, oh, I just dropped one on the floor. Never mind. I'm going to make this one work. I don't know why it's being difficult on me. Okay, so if I just add a little tape runner to the end of those tabs, then I can use that to hold them in, and I'm trying to get a nice square corner. So I'm just looking at the corner there. Okay, then I can take my glue, which is definitely my favorite. So I've got my LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. We sell those items on our website if you want a really great glue, but basically just kind of any dry as clear strong glue is a great choice. And then if you are using the fine tip bottles, I keep a damp paper towel in a jar. Keep that needle tip down in that damp paper towel, and it'll just stay flowing for you throughout your crafting session. Okay, so we're going to fold that over and into that drawer. Now this is a great spot if you're making a lot of these. You know, if you were going to assembly line them for projects and invitations, or you know, holiday cards or something, you could use something like quilting clips or something to hold those together while you move on to the other end. So that'll, you know, like an extra little set of hands for you. So clips can be a good choice. All right, at this end we don't have the ribbon, but the process is the same. The tabs get sandwiched between these two layers as you fold them in. So I can add my glue to the outside of those tabs. Then I can add my glue all over this end. Okay, and then once again, I'm looking to make a straight corner on each side. And if I wanted to, I could clip those while it sets up. Okay, so that is how you make the drawer for the slider box. And that measures, I think, 2 1/4 by 4 1/4-ish. Yeah, 2 1/4 by 4 1/4-ish. And then these, when they fold down, are about 2 by 4. So they're, you know, you get a little bit of slack in there on your surprise cubes, but basically that's the, you know, they were definitely sized to fit that. Okay, then in this same die set, you have decorator dies to fit both the drawer, and then you use the same decorator dies to fit the sleeve. In fact, let me grab that. You can see all of the pieces that come in that die set. There are a lot. And so there's like on the rectangles, there's a long one, you know, that you use to cut the sides. And then for the short end, you've got a couple different ones here. One that has a hole in the middle and one that doesn't. The one with the hole in the middle is the one that you can use, you know, to go with your ribbon through it. And then the other end you can use here, inside, you know, inside and outside, you can do all that. And then on your big rectangles, you kind of have choices, because there's a big one that's just got a little score line in it. And then there's a big one that has a decorative edge to it. And the decorative edge in the slider box that you're going to see that we cut the You've Captured My Heart out, that is the same decorative edge as the little squares that are in the surprise cube. So you get that really matching kind of look when you use these two dies together. Okay, so what we had you do during prep work is cut some of those decorator pieces. So I'm going to see if I can find them all. I've got a big floral rectangle to go down in there. And so that's for the sleeve. I've got floral, floral, floral for inside. So I should have 2 long florals. Then this gets easier as you go because then your pieces start to diminish. Okay, here's a short. Okay. These are cute, cute little doodlebug papers. Okay, suffice to say, I've found all my pieces. I'm going to save you watching me do it. Okay, so we're going to go in there then, and we're going to add the floral pieces all on the inside of the drawer. So that's going to be the big rectangle, the 2 long rectangles, and the 2 short ones. And again, I'm just going to use my glue. I tend to use glue for everything. I love glue. I live in South Texas, Houston area. And let me tell you, it gets humid down here. And I just find that glue holds up the best in our humidity and weather and stuff. I just have had never a problem with glue. You know, things coming apart, especially the pop-ups and things. I just haven't had a problem with glue. Whereas sometimes even the strongest tape, I find it's not always up to the challenge. So I like glue. But there's lots of different glues. I just happen to like the LINECO. Now, the last year, 2022, we actually did the quarterly classes through Stamp and Scrapbook Expo. So they offered a program where they would host your virtual class, and on their YouTube channel and their Facebook channel and all that stuff. And we did that once a quarter through them. They were called Spotlight Workshops. But then this year, we just decided we would do it. We're still going to do them once a quarter, but they're just going to be on our YouTube channel. So this is the first one of 2023, but there'll be another one like this in June. And then, well, I don't know, count 3 months. Every 3 months, we'll do we'll do one of these virtual classes. And again, you really are in complete control because you can slow this down, speed this up, go back and watch something again if you need to. And it's all on YouTube. You could do it in sessions. So if on this session, the only thing you can get done is the slider box project, that's great. You could come back later and do your surprise cube card. So however you want to do it. Okay, so we're going to use the washi tape side of that. Oh, now you can make creative choices. If you would rather have the pink side up, you can certainly do that. But on the bottom of the drawer, we're going to use the pieces that have the washi tape pattern. Okay, so there's one for the bottom, then you've got the sides, and then you've got the ends. Anyway, and so the format of these virtual classes is always the same, which is you buy the kit either from us or from a participating store. You get the prep work, video, and handouts emailed to you about 10 days before class, sometimes 14 if I'm ahead of the game, but I'm not usually ahead of the game. And then you do your prep work on your own time. And once you have your kit prepped, then you're ready for this class day video. And the class day video just debuts at a certain time. So if you watch it on the premiere, there'll be, a chat box going. But other than that, it's all pre-recorded. So it's completely kind of at your own pace and your own time and all that stuff. So, okay, so there's that. Then I've got a solid short piece for the end here. And I saved till the last. Oops. See, that's the other reason I like glue, is because I can move it around a little bit. And then I saved for the end. The last one is the one that has the hole in it. And that one, you have to basically get your ribbon through the decorator piece. Okay, and then add your adhesive to it. Stick it down. And that hole is right in the middle So there's no up or down to that piece. In other words, you don't have to worry, you know, which way you, it's not any closer to the top than it is the bottom, I guess is what I'm saying. It's right in the middle. Okay, there we have our drawer for our slider box. Okay. And then now you can decorate these kind of as a horizontal box, or you can decorate it as a vertical. It's really dependent on, you know, how you want to do it. Actually, you know what? I have a project right back here on the table that uses the horizontal. This is actually the one from the assembly video for the slider box, I think. This one actually has family photos on it. But on this one, see, I decorated it with the sideways orientation, sending a smile, photo cubes, miss you in the bottom. So that's another word set that we offer. And again, just, you know, and so it kind of depends which way your drawer is going to be situated, how you're going to decorate it, as to whether or not you put your photos horizontally or whether you put them vertically, because it's kind of how they're going to come out. So in this case, these photos are oriented horizontally, since the idea is that they would be pulling out the drawer horizontally like this. Whereas the one we're making is decorated vertically. So then when I put the photos on, I put them on vertically so that it would come out like this. Anyway, okay, so let's continue on with our decorating of the drawer. So for this one, there was some just super cute doodlebug paper that included that camera on one of the kind of journaling cards. And so I just, as one of the things you had to do for prep work, is you had to fussy cut that out on the lines. And then there should be in the pre-cuts, so in your baggie of pre-cuts, there should be that little row of tiny hearts. And those have been cut with some double-sided adhesive tape on the back so that they're a sticker. So we can pick up one of those hearts and just add it to that camera. You know, so just the smallest little bit of textural decoration, you know, to that piece. And then that's going to go in here. And then also in your pre-cuts is that love you that we pre-cut from, put that in there, word set 9. Now, you might notice in mine here, it's got a little inking on it. So what I did to ink it, it's completely optional. It's going to look great even if you just leave it the way it is. But if you do want to ink it, then what I did, or what I typically do, is I put it on like a nonstick sheet, and then I use Post-it notes to mask off the bottom word. So all I'm looking for is to have the bottom word protected. Okay. Like this. All right. All right, now let me get out some ink. I'm a fan of Distress inks, but it doesn't really matter the brand. I think we'll do this one. Festive Berries. That's what I'm choosing. Could be like a red or a dark pink or anything. And a blending tool. Okay, and then I like to hit it kind of in a swirly motion from the bottom. And I'm just basically going kind of halfway up, just to give the bottom half of that word a little bit of two-tone. Like that. Okay. Then, once I've done the top word, then I can take the Post-it notes off. And I don't need to mask the bottom word because there's nothing below it. So I'm just going to hold it and do the same thing where I kind of do a swirly motion and go about halfway up. And it just adds a lot of just fun kind of texture to that group, or to that word. Okay. Let's put this together now. So inside the little drawer, I'm going to glue down that camera. You know, location is, well, it's really up to you. Basically, I just placed it so that I could get the love you kind of partially over, the L at least partially overlapping, and fit it in the drawer. So this is why having that fine tip is so nice because you can go in there, you know, get good. Okay, there's the tray or drawer. I vacillate between the two words. I'm not really sure what to call it. Okay, so that's one half of the slider box, is that little drawer. Very, very generic. Okay, the other half of the slider box is the sleeve, and that is cut in basically 3 pieces, which is, this is half of the slider box. So you cut that twice, and we're going to join those together. And then for the end, there is another rectangle in the set that is sized to fit on the end. And then you don't need an end over here because that's where the drawer goes in. Okay, so it's basically these 3 pieces. And, you know, once again, you know, cardstock weight is not super important if you're going to be decorating all sides. But if you're planning on filling it with surprise cubes, you've got 3 rubber bands kind of fighting against your sleeve there. So then I would kind of tend to go towards those 100 pounds, 110 pound cardstocks when you're making your sleeve. But if you didn't have it, you know, use what you got. Okay, so let's take these pieces and work the fold. So you can see there's a tapered tab on this end. Once again, I'm going to use my bone folder. Okay, and then there's a fold right here. Okay, and then you've got the tapered tabs on the end. So you've got a short one and a long one, and they both fold, again, away from you. Okay, you can see how we basically made half of the slider box. And then do the same thing with the other one. Those folds. Okay, now we've got our 2 halves. If I kind of open those back up again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the long tapered tab to connect the 2 pieces together. Then I'll have this tapered tab over here that'll wrap around and connect over here. So we would not ever do tab to tab. It has to be tab to side. And the way that you can check that is you should have your small tapered tabs all in a row if you've done it correctly. So if you flip one around, as you can see, you've got tapered tabs down here, tapered tabs here. You want them all in a row. And again, I'm a fan of glue for this. I'm going to add my glue all over that tapered tab because I want the tapered tab on the inside. I don't want to see it. Okay. And then I'm going to bring this side right up to that fold line. Okay, and then we can bring this side around and connect it over here. So the adhesive goes here. Okay, and then I bring this side around to complete that sleeve. You can lay it down flat if that helps you get better, you know, full adhesion, I guess, so to speak, of your tabs. But okay, so there's the sleeve. I hope you're not hearing my dog coughing up a hairball over there. Lucy, be quiet. All right, so now we've got these ends, and it doesn't really much matter if you put the long end first and then the short end, or if you put the short ends first and the long end. It doesn't really matter, but a little drop of glue to connect, you know, basically those tabs to each other, and then we'll make it all look neat and tidy by adding this piece over the top. So one thing that you may find is that it's difficult to be able to get pressure against those tabs to be able to connect them together. Okay, so a little trick for that is you put your sleeve in, okay, and then you can set it against the table and get good pressure against those little tabs. And in fact, what I'm going to do is, while I'm kind of waiting for that to set up, I might even just go ahead and put my other piece on at the same time, because it doesn't you know, ultimately the goal is to have it completely covered by the other piece. So when you put your glue on for this piece, make sure that you avoid, especially if you have your drawer inside, that you don't want to add glue down in there. Okay. So now again, with that drawer in, I'm able to get good pressure against that piece to attach it. Or you could even, you know, press it against the table like that. And that is it. That's the little sleeve for the slider box. So, you know, easy assembly on that. Okay, and now we're going to decorate it. So the decoration for this one, we're going to start by just putting all the washi tape pieces on all the sides, and then we'll put that other piece on. So you should have 2 of your big rectangles, and then you've got 2 of the long ones, and then you should have 1 of the short one for the end. Okay. So while I'm decorating this, you can tune me out if you're an old hand with these. But let me tell you just a little bit about our company. So I'm Karen Burniston, and I have been in the die design business for, didn't do the math, but a long time. So I started out designing dies for Sizzix. I was one of their licensed artists, and I did that for 5 years. And then I went to Elizabeth Craft Designs, and I was a licensed artist for them for 3 years. And then when that contract ran out, rather than jump back into another licensing agreement, I really kind of wanted to, you know, just kind of go out on my own. But wasn't sure, kind of scared, you know. And then Tanya, who was a friend of mine, Tanya Kostanek, who's the owner of Riley and Company, she was kind of looking for another opportunity about that same time in 2017. And so we teamed up, kind of went in cahoots with each other. And so our home office is in Topeka, Kansas, which is where Tanya lives. And from our home office is, of course, where all the product ships from and everything like that. So I work remotely because I live in Texas, but our main office is in Kansas. And we are a die company, so we're just basically focused on my die designs. You know, definitely with a focus on pop-ups and interactive designs, because that's kind of my specialty. But then we do a lot of decorator pieces and things as well. We have, well, let's see, maybe about 235 dies or so, different designs between. They're not all pop-ups, but over pop-ups we have like over 65 of them. So you'll find there's a little something for everybody if you go kind of check out what we have to offer. Now, because we have an education-based product with all these interactive dies and stuff, I do a lot of YouTube videos. So I do assembly videos on all of the dies. I don't really do them on Word dies, but I do them on, you know, all of the pop-ups for sure, and then the charm sets and the animals and the border sets, and, you know, anything that needs a little instruction, you'll get a YouTube video on that. So we don't leave you hanging. We want you to be able to put everything together and make these cool projects. All right, so that is our decorated sleeve. And then, you know, now you just have to decide which way is up, if there's a side that you prefer to be the top. And then that's going to get that "You've Captured My Heart." And I am looking at my original and seeing that I actually inked those edges. And here, I already put my ink away, so let me grab that back out again. So that's optional if you want to do that, but I might go down to pickled raspberry on that one. So there's where you're seeing that kind of fun decorative edge that rectangle has in the set. Okay, that's going to go on top right there. All right. I love it when, well, I'm a big fan of pattern paper. Oh my goodness, you guys, I have so much pattern paper. But I love when you can let some pattern paper do some of the work for you. So in this case, there's these great little journaling cards in that Doodlebug paper. And we just picked one and cut it out. And then you have leftovers and stuff. You get all your leftovers when you do classes this way. So, you know, one thing I like to do sometimes when I have used pattern paper is I'll add something dimensional. Just kind of makes it look a little bit, I don't know, more like you crafted it and less like, you know what I mean? So I'm going to take another one of those little small hearts from the tiny house pop-up, and I'm going to put it right over the top of that heart that's in the paper and make that dimensional. So just a little something. All right. We have completed now the sleeve portion of our project, and now we're going to move on to surprise cubes. This is one of our rubber band pop-ups. So we have we have several rubber band pop-ups. We have 3 different sizes of pop-up ball die. Those take rubber bands. And I don't have any right next to me to show you, but here's an example. So that's bitty ball. Oh, no, that's both bitty balls, but that's the medium-sized ball that we have. And then there's one that's a little small one, mini ball. Okay, and then we have one that's even bigger than that, which is the surprise ball. This one shows all 3. So here's the mini ball on top, the bitty ball in the middle, and the surprise on the bottom. And then these are powered by rubber bands. So when you put those in a card or whatever, they'll pop up on their own. So the ball dies. That's where we kind of got our start with the rubber band pop-ups. And then now we also have the surprise cube. So these have a rubber band in them that makes them pop up. Okay, and then in the same release, we have this little small band box pop up, which you can use. That's also rubber band powered, and you can use that in a card to make things pop up, like something like, look at this card here. Okay, see how that little box just pops up, whatever you want, anywhere in the card. Okay, so we have these rubber band pop-ups, and the surprise cube is what we're using today. And the way this operates is that you cut the die that cuts half of the surprise cube, you cut it twice for each cube. And so for this project, we had you cut, actually surprisingly, because usually I'm all about heavy cardstocks when I'm using rubber band pop-ups. What I found with the surprise cube is if you cut your cube out of a lightweight cardstock, okay, then it just makes it a little bit lower profile. Like, you see, it's easier to stack them. So if you're doing something where you're stacking a whole bunch of them together into like a drawer like this, then sometimes using that lighter weight cardstock is preferred. So this is actually 65-pound cardstock. It's lightweight. And what we're going to do is we're going to find all the folds in this piece. We're going to start with this one right in the middle. I'm going to freeze this for a second and make sure that I tell you that when you put surprise cubes together, you need to start from identical pieces. So make sure that you're looking at the side of the piece where you can see the score lines the easiest. And that's true of all 6 of them. Make sure you're folding them all identically and you have not flipped one over. And that when we fold on that one, like a valley fold, you're going to see that those holes are, everything's going to line up there in the middle. So that's the valley fold, the one valley fold looking into the valley that is on these pieces. And the rest of them are all mountain folds. So these 2 next to it would actually fold the other direction. Okay. And then see what happens is that those 2 glue together and it creates this little shelf inside the cube that's going to hold our rubber band. So step 1 is going to be to glue our little shelves together. And I think we're going to go ahead and assembly line this, doing this step kind of for all 3 cubes rather than work 1 cube and then start over. You know what I mean? So we're going to put glue down into that shelf and we're going to hold that together. Again, if you have something like a clip, could go in from the inside and clip it so you don't have to hold it. If your glue squishes out like mine did, at least it dries clear. Okay. So that's step 1 with each of those, is to get those little shelves. Okay, so we're going to do that for all 6 pieces. So valley fold in the middle. Okay, then a mountain fold in the next 2 so that we can seal those together. So surprise cubes are one of those things too that you can do, while you're sitting in front of the TV watching TV or something like that. You can be assembly lining some of these cubes. They're not, they're not hard. Just they're always the same. Okay, well, I don't even really need those clips on those. That's pretty easy to do. All right, so carrying on, valley fold in the middle. Okay. You're going to get really good at making cubes because we're making 3 for this project and then we're making 3 for the second project as well. So you are going to be proficient with making surprise cubes. And again, if I'm going too fast for you because you're trying to craft with me, you are going to be completely in control of this YouTube video. I'm not sure if you can pause during the premiere or not. Actually, I'm kind of new to premieres. But as soon as it's over, you know, you can go back and back it up and watch it at your own pace. But if you find that you enjoy doing classes this way, these virtual classes, we have another option for you, and that's our Zoom class program. So what you're watching here is a virtual class, meaning a YouTube class where everything is pre-recorded. And I might be in the chat section on the premiere, you know, answering some questions and things. But basically, you know, you're not here with me to ask me the questions as you craft. So we do these once a quarter. But then the other 2 months in the quarter, my class is on Zoom. And the Zoom class program is actually only offered through participating stores. So you have to buy your kit from the stores. You can't buy it from our website on Zoom months. So on those months, you just go to our events page. You'll find the list of stores that are offering kits, and you contact one of those stores and they will ship. They will ship. So you don't have to worry that it's, you know, if you can find one in your area, that's great. But if it's not in your area where you could pick up your kit, you can still get your kit shipped. So Zoom kits. So Zoom kit classes normally are on the first Saturday of each month. However, in April, we moved it to the middle of the month, had an event, and because Easter was the next weekend. So, but typically it's the first Saturday of the month, and we start at 11 o'clock Central, and we go until we're done. And that might be 3-4 hours. We make 2. It's going to be very similar to this. It's going to be 2 cards. It's just that it's on Zoom, so you can actually ask me questions, and you know, I can highlight you and help you with any problems you have and stuff like that. But it's also recorded, so if you can't make the live Zoom, then you can go back and watch it. Okay, I've gotten through all of my shelf, my step 1. Okay, so now for each one, I'm going to fold. All of the remaining folds are going to fold away from me like a mountain fold. So just going around working those folds. Now you can use a bone folder if you want. This is pretty lightweight cardstock, so I'm not finding it necessary. But I will say is when you're choosing your cardstocks for the rubber band pop-ups, or really for pop-ups in general, try and use smooth cardstock if you can. It makes it so much easier on the folds to see them, to make sure they're in the right spot. When you use textured cardstock, it's not that it won't work, it's just a little bit more difficult on the folding end. And then another thing I've noticed, and I'm sure you have too if you've been crafting a long time, man, some cardstocks are just mushier than others. I don't know how else to say it. Every once in a while you get a type of cardstock or a brand or a color or something, and when you fold it, it doesn't feel like it folds crisply. It folds like it's kind of mushy. And so avoid the mushy cardstocks when you find them and try and do ones that will fold crisply. We like to use cardstock from the Paper Cut. So this cardstock that we're using, this is their 65-pound version. They have the same color in 100-pound. They have a bunch of colors of 100-pound cardstock and smooth cardstock, and it folds beautifully. I love it for the pop-ups. And if you want to try it out, we do offer exact packs, which are 6x6 packs of cardstock that have been kind of curated to the colors you need, usually for our animal add-ons and things for our ball dies, but you know, use it for whatever you want. And that's a great choice if you wanted to try out that cardstock and see if you like it. Okay. So just folding every single fold in the surprise cube away from me like a mountain fold. See, the other thing about like a class like this on YouTube, it's pre-recorded and I have no idea if you all are crafting as fast as me, but I know that you have the ability to pause and stop and rewind and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't as much matter. On the Zoom classes, of course, that's why I say they go as long as they go, because I will stop. I will go as fast as the class goes. And if people need me to stop and explain something again, I will. And people can ask me questions. And it's virtual, but it's live, like you're in the virtual classroom with your fellow students and with me. So we love that. We love that program. Once you've got all your folds done, then now we're basically we need 2 of these to make 1 cube. And just like we did with the slider box, what you've got here is you've got a tapered tab on one end and you've got a flat side on the other. And that's true of all of them. So we've got a flat side and a tapered tab. And just like with the sleeve, you have to do the side to the tab so that you have the tab on the other end to connect over here. Okay, so you never connect tab to tab. It's always tab to side so that you have the tab over here to connect there. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to put our strong adhesive all over that tapered tab on the end. So you've got triangles sticking out the sides. We're talking about the tapered tab at the end. Then we're going to take the flat end side of another one. We're going to line it up over that tab. And, do your best to get this straight. You would like this straight. You don't want it too crooked because it's got to be able to, flatten down and be straight. Okay, so once you get that side on, then what I would say is let's just go to them. We're going to assembly line these. So now we're going to do the same with the next one. Okay, and then third one. When you use a lightweight cardstock for your cube, then it is going to need the added strength of your pattern paper before it will resist the rubber band. Okay, so 65-pound cardstock cannot, not with these little number 8s that we're using. Okay, it's not strong enough to hold that rubber band until it gets the paper on the square sides. Okay, just 1 layer of paper is enough. So if you had decided to do your photos this way, then you would want to put your photos on, but you have pattern paper that you cut. And so what we're going to do is for each one, we're going to do matching paper. So we're going to make one that has washi tape squares. We're going to make one that has pink squares. And we're going to make one that has the floral squares. Now we're not going to worry about triangles yet. We just have to get the squares on and then we can assemble the cubes. Okay, so when you glue these squares on, because we are actually adding them for strength, then you want to get your adhesive all the way to the edges, especially the 2 that are going to reinforce around that shelf. See, on the inside, that's where the rubber band is going, right? So these 2, especially on this little edge right here where they're close up by where that rubber band is, we really want those shellacked on there. Okay, so here's what I mean by that. I'm going to put my adhesive around the perimeter and then kind of everywhere, but especially around the perimeter. So we don't want just little dainty dots of adhesive. This isn't decoration, this is strength. And then we're going to get that on there, centered in that panel. Okay, and make sure it's really adhered, especially as it gets close, to where the rubber band's going to go. Okay, and then just carry on until we've added all of our squares. Oh, golly. Dry's clear. Dry's clear. Now, what I was saying about the Zoom class is about you being able to be in the room and ask me questions and stuff like that. One of the reasons that we offer the YouTube classes is that some people are just not, they don't want to do Zoom. They don't want to do the live class, whatever. They don't want to be on camera. They don't, they want to do it at their own pace, whatever. And that's fine. You've got this YouTube option. But even the Zoom classes, there is a recording. So if you purchase a Zoom class and then something happens, or you knew from the beginning you couldn't make the live class, or maybe you make the live class but then somebody's got a baseball game or something and you need to go, or it runs long, that happens sometimes, then you can watch the recording. So the recording comes out like the next day. I'll send out the recording to the stores for them to email the students. So you'll have a recording on that as well. And then, when you get the Zoom recording, it also gets uploaded onto this YouTube channel, but it's left unlisted. So you have to have the link to get to it. And then you're in control again, right? You can fast forward, you can slow me down, you can repeat things, whatever you need to do. So try out the Zoom classes if you're interested. They're fun, but the format is exactly like this. It's just the class days on Zoom instead of on YouTube. And we started doing the Zoom classes, of course, during the pandemic when I couldn't teach in person. And I didn't know how they were going to go at first, because I thought, oh no, if I can't grab someone's project out of their hand when I think they're folding it wrong, it'll never work. It'll never work. But actually it does work. The students are lovely and people have a good time. And some people get together, with their friends and all craft in the same location while they're logged into the Zoom call. But yeah, it's been a really nice, fun program, and actually has allowed me, because of us switching to this format where you do the majority of your own cutting. I'm able to teach once a month, and I never used to be able to do that. I used to have to teach maybe once a quarter because of all of the prep work involved in cutting kits. But now the students cut the kits. So thank you, students, for doing your own cutting. But the students report that they like being able to cut their own kits because they learn so much about the dies that way. So if you've ever gone to a class and, this is the way your class kit comes, just ready to assemble, that's good. You learn how to assemble the dies, but you haven't really learned all the tips and tricks for cutting with the dies. And that's something that those prep work videos do, is they allow me to kind of teach you all of the ins and outs of the dies and the different things they can do, and the tricks that I've come up with. And then if you do the Zoom class, one of the best parts about it is that the students share all their tips and tricks that they've come up with. And oftentimes at the break, they'll show projects that they've made. And so it's a real fun group. I invite you if you want to join us. Almost there. Okay, so if you're using 65-pound cardstock for your surprise cubes, then decorator squares are pretty much required for strength. If you're using 100-pound cardstock, then decorator squares are optional. So if you, for instance, wanted to make a ton of these, you were sending them out for something, Christmas or something like that, and you wanted to reduce the amount of cutting you'd have to do, then your cardstock's going to make a difference because you're going to use the heavier stuff. All right, let's talk about rubber bands. So I mentioned that there are two, well, I didn't mention it yet, but I mentioned that there's more rubber band pop-ups that we offer. And all of our ball dies use number 12 soft stretch rubber bands. That's my favorite. People have made them work with other sizes, but my very favorite are Alliance softest stretch size 12 pale crepe gold rubber bands. And you can buy an enormous box of these that'll last you forever on Amazon if you want to. Okay. Or because people didn't want to buy those giant boxes of rubber bands, you can also just buy like a little pack of 50 of them on our website. Now, people were already using this size rubber band in our ball dies. And I know that some of our customers have purchased a giant box of number 12s. And so as we came out with new rubber band pop-ups, being the surprise cube and the band box, I did want those number 12s to be able to be used in the surprise cube and the band box so that you didn't have to purchase the number 8s. However, if you don't mind purchasing number 8s, which we also offer in a little pack of 50, or you can purchase an enormous box on Amazon. These ones are actually firm stretch. So they're the Alliance Advantage rubber bands, size 8, firm stretch. Okay. Or you can get a little pack of 50 from us, or from your store. I should say from your store, because the stores also repackage these. And I do love these number 8s for both the band box and the surprise cube. But when you watch the assembly video on the surprise cube, you will see that you can do them. You can do them with either size. So it doesn't have to be the number 8s, but they are my favorite. So I did ask the kit makers to put number 8s in your kit. And I think I told them to put 6 in there. That's just in case you break one or whatever. You just need one rubber band per cube. Okay. Now here's what we're going to do with our cute little small number 8 rubber bands. We're going to flip this over. Okay. And we're going to take a rubber band and we're going to go around one of those shelves so that the band is just in the holes. See that? Okay. So it doesn't matter which, which end. So just around that shelf and into the hole. The holes, I should say. Okay. Okay. Then we're just going to bring this up and go. I mean, if you were doing, you can actually do it. I should have shown you that. You can actually do it. Let me take this one off. Say you were making a bunch of them at one time. You can bring these together and go around both at one time. So, and accomplish the same thing, which is basically having the rubber band stretched between the two shelves. So whichever way is easiest. Now, if you use the number 12, you have to wrap it around the shelf one extra time. And I'm not going to go over that because we're all using number 8s in this class, but you can watch the assembly video for the surprise cube pop-up and it'll show you how to do it with the number 12. So number 12s work as well. Number 8s are my favorite simply because I don't have to wrap it an extra time. It's just basically ready to go now. Okay, so that's what you do. And once you have that rubber band in there between those two things, then you can connect the tab over to the other side. Okay. Now we're going to add this tab to this side. And you can do that by I'm just sitting here lining it up and looking at it. I can see these edges are the same over here, I find it just as easy to do this as, say, laying it down and trying to press it against the table. But however it's easiest, you just want to get it, connected. All right, and then let's do this one. Okay. This is why I love dries clear, because if it squishes out, I just wipe it off. Okay, it's that one. And then this one. Now, some of you may be watching this and you're international, meaning you're not in the United States. And some of those stores will actually ship internationally as well for the, we do for kits. We've sold out of this kit, but you can check with the stores. But even the Zoom kits sometimes will ship internationally. Okay, so now we've got these 3. Now, we've got more tabs to connect. They're these little small tabs on the side. But to get them into the connection thing, we have to push the opposite corners of the rubber band so that it stretches the band out. And then we have to hold it because it's going to try and come back to right where you started. So see what I've got? I've got my hands over here. I'm pushing on those sides so that it stretches out the other direction. And now I've got to hold it so it won't pop back open again. And now these little tabs, 4 little small tabs, are going to fold into the cube and connect to the other triangle that they match up with. Okay, so in all cases, you don't fold it over the top because then you would see it. You're going to fold it to the inside, put some glue on that tab, and connect it to the other triangle, and then we'll flip it around. We'll do the same thing. So you find the one that has the tab, you fold it in, we add some glue here, and then attach it to the other cube. Okay. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping pressure on this in the center because it's got my rubber band stretched out. Okay. Then I'm going to take my finger and fold this down a little bit so I have access to this tab right here, and I'm going to add my adhesive to that tab. Okay. All right. And then that folds in. This folds to it. Once again, if my adhesive comes out, I just squish it out. Now, resist the urge to let go because until you get all four of them put together, when you let go, it's not going to do what you want it to do. So try not to let it go. Just hold it. But I'm going to go do this one. So in the assembly video for the surprise cube, I do use a heavyweight cardstock, and I don't add those pattern paper pieces on first because it's not necessary. But you're learning here in this video that if you use the lightweight, you do want to add your square pattern paper first. Or cardstock. That could be cardstock. Doesn't have to be pattern paper. Okay, this one. Okay, and again, not letting go. Holding on. Okay, once all four are connected, then I can let go, and it'll come up to a cube. That might look a little bit like a fish on the ends there, but we haven't trained it yet. So you'll have that cube. Okay. And then the training of it is that, especially if you were putting this in a card, it wouldn't really matter if your triangles folded to the outside or whether they folded to the inside, as long as you had room for it in a card. So you could put it in a card and have the triangles to the outside. But if you're putting it in the slider box, then you really do need the triangles to fold into the cube. Okay, so like this, we're basically going to press those fish lips to go inside the cube and then give it a good press. Okay, and then same thing over here. So we're going to take those fish lips, push them in. Okay, and then it's going to fold down into basically, this is a 2x2 square. So it's basically a 2x4 footprint. Okay, so it folds in on itself and then it'll pop up and be a cube. Isn't that fun? Now, you may notice, I say I just did it. I just tried to do it the wrong way. You can't collapse the cube pushing on the ends, these ends. You can only collapse it pushing on the ends where the cut is. Okay, so the ends where the score is, it's solid, but here you can collapse it. So you can only collapse it one way. That's not particularly important for when we're putting them in a slider box, but when we go to do our second card, which is our stacked cube card, then it will be important that we pay attention to which way it collapses, because if you put it in the card this way, it collapses to the back. Okay, but if you put it in the card this way, it collapses forward. So it depends, and you can do it either way. Okay, so let's make some cubes and continue on doing the same thing. Okay, so go into my second cube. Again, first thing I have to do is I have to collapse it the opposite way, and then I have to hold it. Okay, while I do these small tabs. Okay, so while I'm doing this, let me talk to you about places that you can get inspiration. We've already talked about my YouTube channel that you're on right now, actually. So if you subscribe, you don't have to subscribe, but if you do subscribe, then you'll get notification when I have a new video. And just so you know, the only thing I do videos about are these dies. I don't do any video. I don't do any other videos. If you subscribe, you're not going to get, YouTube videos of my family or anything like that. My dogs. Anyway, so subscribe to YouTube videos. and then you'll get notification. Now, when I do assembly videos, I do a full card in the assembly videos. So sometimes people will be looking, they'll forget like, oh yeah, the assembly videos are full card videos too. They're not just like a quick demonstration of how to, see what I just said, don't let go, how to put the die together, but they're actually full card videos. So, and then we also do a designer challenge every month. So we have a very talented design team from all over the world, and they participate once a month, the first Wednesday after the first Tuesday. The first Tuesday of every month, let's put it that way. They post their cards for that month's challenge on their own blogs. And then on the Wednesday, the next day, I post a compilation post on my blog. And you know, they're just so talented. They'll give you all sorts of ideas. And so that's a good place for inspiration. And now this may happen too when you go in. You know, I didn't give that long enough to set up, and so it's come apart. So I'll just go in and fix it. So designer challenges. So for designer challenges, which are once a month, and I also do a video, and those are what are in on this YouTube channel as card making with dies videos. And those are always, you know, a card idea using our dies. I'm going to give that a second. Move on to this one. So that's another good place for inspiration. And you can subscribe to our newsletter, and then you'll get notification if we have a new class or, you know, the designer challenges. We do all sorts of stuff. Anyway, so those are our channels. Then we have one of my favorites is our Facebook group. So some of you aren't on Facebook, but if you are on Facebook, you can request to join our Facebook group, which is called Karen Burniston Pop-Up Peeps. And in the Peeps, people are posting with our dies just, you know, from all over the world. There's some great inspiration. And, you know, sometimes people will go into the Peeps and say, oh, I want to make a something, you know, I need some ideas for making a unicorn out of the such and such die. And the Peeps will be right there with ideas and things. People are very complimentary of everybody posting their cards and stuff. They make nice comments. The design team is all members of the Peeps, so they'll post their stuff there too. So anyway, pop-up Peeps, great source of inspiration. And just kind of, and then we have a Facebook page, of course, a business page, and then we have Instagram, we have Pinterest, but you know, we mainly hang out on that Facebook group and Instagram too, but not as much Instagram. Mostly the Facebook group. Okay. Let's see how I did here. Get this put together. Yep, that looks good. All right, taking my fish lips, folding them into the cube, giving everything a good press. Same with this one. All right, and we have our 3 surprise cubes. And the only thing we have left to do is to decorate the ends. So you have dies set. There's dies in the set that will do that as well. So you've got the big triangles, which I had you cut same colors as the cube. And then there's even smaller triangles that have that same decorative edge that we've been talking about. So that deco edge that matches the slider box, that matches the square, is also on those little smaller triangles. So in this case, we're going to do matching triangles to whatever, you know, like this one's the flower cube, then it'll get flower triangles. And then the washi tape cube will do that. I typically, if I'm doing photos, you can cut photos for this side of the cube, but it has to have a split and a fold in it to be able to work. So I tend to not complicate things by trying to cut photos to fit there, and then, you know, they'll have gaps in them and all that kind of stuff. So I try to just do decorative pieces when I'm doing the ends like this. And then what I had you cut, this might be overkill, but I just kind of wanted you to see all the cool pieces that were in that set. And then I had you cut, match these up with the ones, some solid color, smaller triangles to fit those cubes as well. Okay, so I kind of have a feeling that we may not want to spend all this time just gluing on triangles. We have a lot of triangles to glue on. I'm just wondering if that should be kind of almost homework in a way. I'll tell you what, I'm going to glue the big triangles on one side. You can see them. And then I think I'll have you all finish up the other side kind of as homework so we can move on to the other card. Because this really would be something good to do while you're, listening to an audiobook or a podcast or watching your favorite TV program. That's the other thing that we sometimes do on the Zoom classes is we exchange our favorite things that we're watching on streaming services, What's everyone watching on Netflix? What's everyone watching, We'll trade recommendations. I've gotten some good recommendations from the students on our Zoom classes. Things to watch. These are sized so that you'll get a little shadow of your original cardstock color, cube color, around these, because you don't really want them butted right up into that fold, or they'll bunch. Okay. The other thing too is you could just skip putting triangles on these end pieces at all. You see it, just let it be cardstock. Again, that would be a way to save some cutting time and decorating time. But you do have two. It's coming up. You do have two of those, each of those triangle dies in the set to make it a little easier on the cutting side. So try to do that whenever I can. If you have to cut multiples and there's space in the die set, then I'll add a multiple on the die side so that it's easier. And then sometimes you can cut through 2 layers too. So with these triangles, you could cut through 2 layers. Okay, so here's my 3 that have the big triangles on. That could be it. That could be done if you wanted to, or if you want to add the little decorative ones. My idea being the little decorative edge ones, then they match the decorative edge of the photos. And then you have those to put on there. So I did pink on the, it's really up to you. All the colors match so nicely. You could do it however you wanted to, but I did pink on here. I did green on here. And then I did the yellow ones on here, or mix and match. It might be kind of fun to have the various colors on each one. That might be kind of cool. Okay, and those will leave a shadow as well. So you get the idea, right? So you're going to finish out that. You're going to flip them over and do, lather, rinse, and repeat. Do the exact same on the other side, or different if you want to. But that's what all of these triangles that you cut are for, to finish those out. Okay, so instead, let's talk a little bit about the square sides and adding photos to those. So again, I did them kind of oriented vertically. So in your handout, now I'm sorry for my international students because you probably don't have Walgreens in your country, but for those of you in the United States, there is a YouTube collage photo printing video here on this YouTube channel. The link is right here in your handout. And I'll also put it in the description box below this video. And that is a tutorial video for how to use Walgreens photo editor. I'm sorry, I'm talking and looking, to cut a collage print for 49 cents that will get you 6 square photos that are a beautiful size to fit on the surprise cube. And that square photo, when you use their photo editor, when you pull them all in and it just makes those squares automatically, those squares are such that you could use either the bigger die, the bigger square die that we use to cut pattern paper, that will leave just an ever so slight white border around it, or the decorative edge squares, you can use that. It'll cut into your photo just a little bit, but it basically preserves most of it. And then, you get those square photos to be able to fit the surprise cube. So if you do want to make photo cubes, and you have access to Walgreens, there is a video that tells you how to do that. Or the other thing is you can just take your big old photos that you have, or maybe you could cut wallet size or something like that, have them printed up. And then you can still cut those down with those small dies. You can look at some of your bigger photos, and if they have small people in them, you might be able to get, you can look through the die to see what you're cutting. But then once you have your photos cut, then those will fit, on there. Centered on each one. And so you need 4 photos for each cube. Oh, sorry, I should have these like this. They would be like this on the side. Yeah, so 4 photos for each cube. Okay, like I said, I used my dog, so I'm not going to put the photos on, but you get the idea. Okay, so that is our card number 1. Once you get those all decorated up, then the way you you make sure that they fold inward, and that may mean that as you're collapsing it, okay, if a side starts to punch out like that, just you're the boss, push that to come inward like that, so that you can stack those up in that drawer. Okay, so here's something to know about rubber band pop-ups is the rubber bands, especially when you're storing them flat, they do stretch out. I mean, you want to keep this in a climate controlled area of your house, so if you're making these ahead and you're not going to give them out until the summer, it's fine that you're storing them flat like this, but don't put them in the attic, don't put them in the garage, because you want to keep those rubber bands from wearing out. But they do stretch out. But the nice thing about the rubber bands is that they regain their springiness after they've been open for a while. So I'll give you an example. Let me find one on the back wall here that's been collapsed for a while, because we may see that happen. So here's a happy birthday one. Okay, so see how those came out and they didn't go crisply up into a full cube? Well, that's just because the rubber band got stretched out from it being just flattened for so long. I mean, it's probably been sitting on the back wall there for a month, and not opened. Okay, so here's your 2 choices with a surprise cube. You're going to give your project, you go grab it out of the drawer that you've been keeping it in, and you open it up and you just let your surprise cube stay out on the table. And you'll come back in a couple of hours and they will be all, I mean, this one's almost all fixed itself already. So it doesn't take long, and those rubber bands will regain their spring again. Or if you need to hasten that process along, and you've got one that looks like this, you can pull the fish lips back out again, okay? And that tends to bring them back close together again really fast. So if you need to train them fast, because you're heading to that birthday party and you need to have that thing done, see, that'll do it too. So let's do that again. So you can take this, you can pop those to the outside, give them a press, and that really tends to get the rubber band springy again, okay? So that's how you can do it. But other than that, just leave them out for a little bit and they'll regain their spring. And that is true when we get to our second project, which we're about to do, which is this card. If you've had it laid flat, stored flat, when it pops up, you may see gaps in your cube more than you like. It may be, like you just saw with those, it might be something like this. And man, let it sit out, come back in a couple hours, it'll be all tightened back up again. So the rubber bands are pretty resilient that way. But, they are rubber bands. Rubber bands can break. They can disintegrate. They can, and I'm just going to put by the way, I didn't use those other 2 hearts. You can find a place for them on your project if you want to, or use them for something else. I'm just going to put all my triangles back in my card 1 baggie along with my project. Is that the one? Yeah. And then when I'm sitting in front of the TV, I'll just finish that up with those triangles and photos. Okay, card 1 in the bag. Let's move on to card number 2 now. Okay, so this one's going to be the other way to use the surprise cube. So one way to use the surprise cube is on its own. Doesn't have to be photos. We could have decorated those cubes differently if we wanted to. And the other way to use the surprise cubes is by putting them in a card. Okay, so actually mounting them inside a card. The card we're going to make is going to have 3 of them stacked on top of each other. Okay, so I grabbed a couple other surprise cube cards so I could just show kind of the different ways you might stack the cubes. So here's the one from the packaging. This one has a magnetic closure to keep it closed, but those little decorative squares and stuff out of the surprise cube can also be used flat for their own embellishments. And this one has 3 cubes stacked up, birthday theme, make a wish, and it, you know, goes like this. Okay. So that's the one from the packaging. Then there's this one, also a magnetic closure. It says, just saying, we make a great team. And then it's got our sports charms on it. And you get like a really cool flinging action on these front ones because they're disconnected, you know, and they bounce around as the card opens. So that one's 3 side by side in a card. So you can always choose your layout, your card size. You can see those are different card sizes, as long as it fits the cube. Then this is the one from the assembly video. So this one's showing photo cubes just from a trip to Paris. It says congrats, and then it says enjoy Paris. So kind of a cool travel card. And again, the 3 stacked up kind of in a triangle shape, but then actually even a sign put on top of it so you can watch that assembly video. And this one uses our flap and closure die set. So we have a flap and closure and a long flap and closure. Well, actually, this one's long flap and closure. It's just magnet instead of string. And so we have those little closure dies too. So that's one thing about when you're using a rubber band pop-up inside a card, then the rubber band is what's popping up the item. And so if you don't want to have an immediate reveal as soon as they pull it out of the envelope, then you're going to want to incorporate some kind of closure. So the closure we're going to make today is one that's become kind of a favorite of mine. I've used it in class a couple times now, where you create a little flap of cardstock that just goes into a, you know, another little area, and it'll keep your card closed. So that one's got there's a video on that one too that I did the first time, and then we did a line. We've done that closure. I think this is the 3rd time we're using that one in class. I actually really like that closure. It's easy to make just with cardstock. Okay, so we are going to start by getting out our card. Let's get the card put together first. Okay, so for this one, I'll make sure I do this right. All right, I had you cut and score already that yellow cardstock, and you've probably folded it on only one of the 2 folds for the gusset. So make sure you get your second fold folded as well. One thing about doing these stacked cube dies is that you're definitely going to want a gusseted card because you've got a lot of thickness in those things. So by, you know, you relieve a little bit of the strain on it by having a card that has some gussets. So we're going to do a 1/4 inch. I think is what we did. I think that's a 1/4. It's 3/8. I don't know. I think it was a 1/4 inch gusset on either side of our card. Okay, so this is going to be this side of our card, the left side. It's going to be the big panel here, smaller panel here. Then you should have another piece of yellow cardstock that again has gusseted 2 folds close together to make a gusset. You want to work both of those. Okay. Bone folder if you want to. Okay, and then out on the other end, you've got a 1-inch flap, and that 1-inch flap is going to go opposite the gusset. Okay, so whichever way your gusset is going, your this flap is going to go the other direction. Okay, because this is going to be the portion that the closure comes over and like locks into. Okay, all right. So looking at these, what you've got, you should have your gusseted fold closer to the left, okay, and then you've got your extra flap out here, okay. So we definitely want the side that is closest to the gusset is going to be what we're going to glue behind here, okay. Now, one thing I like to do so that I don't have to be quite as perfect on the lining up is if I start at the edge of the gusset and just take a little bit off, I'm basically making a tapered tab out of this tab that I'm gluing to the back by just taking a little triangle off of each side. It doesn't even have to be even because it's the only thing about that is when I glue this behind here, All I'm trying to avoid is having like a little corner sticking out right here or here because I didn't get it lined up absolutely perfectly. You know, by having it be gusset or tapered, then I only have to worry about the ends. And see, it doesn't matter that it comes in. And it doesn't matter if those are even because we're going to put a piece of cardstock underneath there anyway to cover that all up. Okay, so then after making my tapered tab, I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive all over it. Okay, and then that's going to go behind there up to that gusset. So the first fold of the gusset, you know, would come right to the edge of the cardstock. And you can even, you know, so now you've got a card with 2 gussets and you've got this flap here. Okay, and then the last piece of yellow cardstock is going to be the one that's going to be our closure. And that's the one where we did 2 score lines. I think they're like a ½ inch apart. Okay, and what we want to do with this one is we want to accordion fold. So if you fold away from yourself on the first one, fold back towards yourself on the second one. So basically a mountain and a valley. Now, does it matter if it's valley then mountain? No. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter whether you fold the first one towards yourself and the second one away from yourself, or if you fold the first one towards yourself and say it doesn't really matter. The goal here is basically to make a T, if you're looking at from the side, to make a T out of that piece. All right, so how do we make a T? We have to seal in this valley so that if you were looking at it on the table here, it would look like a capital letter T. Okay, so I just need to put my glue down in that valley. Okay. Glue it down. Once again, if you've got some clips, you could clip it, but I'm just going to hold it. Okay. Okay, there's my capital letter T. Okay. Now, when we go to glue this on this thing, if you're deciding which side I should glue down, and actually I can't remember if I did glue it on the inside. I would glue it so that the fold, see I've got a fold. This is basically double thick right here. I like the double thick side to be the one that I slide in over here versus the single thick side. So as I'm looking at it, I kind of want the fold line up toward me. Okay, so if you're looking at it like this and you've got a single layer towards you, just flip it over so that you see the double layer towards you. See what I'm looking at right there? Okay, and then this is going to glue down centered on this side of the card. Okay, would it work if you did it on this side? Absolutely, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to do it on the inside because I can see that that's what I did on this one. Okay, so it's going to be back here that I need the adhesive. Okay, and then you can measure if you want to. I just measure by eye. That looks to be about an inch, a little more than an inch. You know, you just want it centered-ish. It's not, well, straight would be nice, Karen. Hang on. That's why I like using glue. Okay. Okay, and then this will just pivot out on the end there. Okay, we can't quite use the closure yet because we need to get paper on before we seal down this thing, but that's how it's going to work, is that this is going to come over and fold into that thing. Okay, now we're ready to decorate. So once again, we are using those cute Doodlebug papers, and everything's going to be flower side up, unless you're making a creative choice. You should be able to just start looking through your papers and finding the ones, you know, that fit the different panels. Now you've got panel like this. And then you've got a panel that's shorter. I would use the shorter one. It doesn't even really matter because you're putting that thing. So it doesn't really matter if you put the short one over here, it doesn't matter because this is coming down. You know what I'm saying? So I would save short one for the front. I would use these three in here, and then you've got one that I think is the same size as that for on the front. Okay, we're just going to glue those down inside the card, and we're not putting any paper down in the gussets. So these are all just panels to fit the card itself. Now I'm sure there is a way that these all line up because of the way we cut it. That's not super important to me. But if it is important to you, then you can look and see, okay, the pattern lines up that way versus it doesn't, line up this way. So if you want your pattern to continue across panels, then choose accordingly. Okay. Now this one, oh, it is this one. I'm going to say it could be that. I don't know which one it is. Whether it's... I'm actually not sure how sensitive the microphone is, whether or not it is picking up my dog's clip clopping of her feet across the wood floor. She is in here just thinking she is starving to death because it's almost her dinner time. She's pacing the floor, looking at me like, are you going to feed me? Okay, so there's the inside of the card with paper. Okay, and then if I close it up, and remember I've still got that flap that I haven't done anything with yet. If I add this piece over here and just look to have kind of an equal amount of yellow showing top, right, and bottom, then it doesn't matter that it doesn't come all the way to the left edge because we're going to have this flap there anyway. Okay, so just get it. Just worry about this edge, and this edge for placement on that one. Okay, and then on this one, I'm going to get the other big floral piece. So typically what we do with a quarter's worth of classes, which would be 2 Zoom classes and a YouTube class, is I'll work with the stores to pick up a paper line that we use pretty much throughout that 3 months worth of classes. So this quarter, we were using Doodlebug and Bella Boulevard, which have kind of combined now. So these are Doodlebug this month. And then next 2 months, April and May, is a new series. And those ones we will be using Photoplay. So, and we've used Echo Park before. We've used, what else have we used? Simple Stories. We've used Simple Stories before. So yeah, we use different paper lines. And there's so many great papers out there. Okay, so now I've got this all done. Now, if you want to go ahead and add the cardstock to the back, I had you just cut a piece of spearmint for that to fit the back. And that's mainly just for durability. That's one thing about stacking 3 surprise cubes in a card is this you've got to have your heavy cardstock. If you use light cardstock, it would just bow crazily. I mean, you're even still getting a little bit of bow on this one, but not that much. So adding that cardstock to the back both will cover up this how the sausage was made, how that flap was put, but then it'll also give it some strength, some additional strength. So you wouldn't have to be quite as strong with your cardstock if you had flaps on all 4 sides. So if you had fold-in flaps top and bottom as well, then that's going to do some of the work for you, and you wouldn't. But this one doesn't have any fold-in flaps on the top or bottom, so we're really relying on this cardstock to do all the work for us. Keep that card closed. Okay. Well, that's the back. I'll flip it over. It's coming together. All right, then to make this little slot to be able to hold our closure, then when we glue this flap down, we need to make sure it's only at the top and the bottom because we want to be able to slide underneath it with the closure. So we're going to just put some adhesive. I put too much water in my paper towel and it's not liking me right now. I did that right before I started recording because I was like, oh, I don't want my glue to dry out. And I got a little crazy with my water. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that and flip it over. Okay. So we only want glue top and bottom for that. And this one, I think I might go ahead and, oh gosh. Dries clear, everyone. So we're only gluing it top and bottom right now. And just because I don't think that that glue will necessarily be enough to hold that flap down under the pressure of, you know, all of those desperately wanting to expand cubes, then what I like to do when I do a closure like this is I'll take a full 12-inch strip of cardstock or paper and go wrap it around the card. So I'm basically reinforcing that, you know, that connection so that that can't flip up like it, you know, it's not just the glue that's being used to hold it. Okay. So for that, I had you cut a 3/4 inch by 12-inch piece of one of the papers. And if you watch the prep work video, I told you that you could fold it, you know, at a certain spot-ish to be able to get it into your baggie. But basically, we're going to glue that on. And wherever the seam ends up on the inside, the gap, you know, because it's 12 inches and this is a 6-inch card. So it's not going to, no matter how much you pull, you're probably not going to get it to come completely together. Wherever that gap is, we're going to end up putting a flower to cover that gap. Okay. So you can choose where your gap goes. You know, it doesn't matter. The flower's right there for no other reason than that's where my gap ended up. But if you wanted that flower lower, then you could change the folds, you know, so that it's that way. But for that one, we actually want to glue it down. We want to glue it down all the way around the card. This is for decoration, but also function. The other thing I wasn't able to do is figure out how to use those little coffee cups that were on the inside of this paper. The floral was already so busy and and it wasn't really that theme, but you have your leftovers. But I will say I loved the coffee cups on the inside of that paper. Backside. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm wrapping it around the whole card, centering it in the thing, and then wherever it ends up, it's going to probably have a little gap, and that's fine. We'll put a flower over that. Okay, but now we've got it wrapped around to where it's going to hold that closed, and now you'll see that that closure is working now. It doesn't have anything fighting against it yet, but it's in there and working. Okay, so I did two more little pieces of paper if we want to add them. Had you cut a piece of paper for the top of your closure here, and then when it's closed up, I had you cut a little piece of the mint paper to just go right there, just for a little contrast. So there's a little piece that'll fit right there in your pre-cuts. Oh, well, I mean what you cut, not what we cut for you. Oh, here they are. Okay, so I've got this piece and this piece. So this one goes right here. So that's with your closure closed. So when you're looking for the spot for that, you have your in, and it's this back side right here. Okay, and then you've got a piece for right here. Okay, so there is our cool card base. One thing that's nice about the surprise cubes is because they are operated by a rubber band, they're basically just going to glue in when you're ready to glue them in, right? So we can make those cubes and then glue them in, but you can work on all, you don't have to like, it doesn't have to build over a fold in a certain combination, or, you can, the cubes are basically entirely separate from the card until you glue them in. So we can actually work on the flat parts of the card and have that all ready to go. And then we'll work the cubes, we'll put them in, we'll be done. Okay, so in fact, why don't we just go ahead and do that? Let's just work on the front of this card, get that knocked out. Okay, so one of the required dies was our new Crosshatch Hexagons. And these are going to be great for using with our ball dies too, because the ball dies are hexagons. So it's one of those shapes that I think you'll get a lot of use out of. But then they also are great for honeycombs. So one of the things that we did as part of our prep work is I had you basically create a honeycomb using the smallest hexagons on black cardstock, and then we cut it out with one of the squares out of our surprise cube, and then that is going to be that decoration on those cubes, or some of the cubes or whatever. Okay, but then for the front of the card, I had you cut 3 of the black hexagons and 3 of the yellow crosshatch ones. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue one to each black one just centered. So those are all pieces that you cut using those crosshatch hexagons. So crosshatch is kind of one of those patterns. I mean, honestly, it's a throwback to engineering school is what it is. We used crosshatch pattern a lot in engineering school, and it's a pattern that I like, So when we started doing nested shape dies, I said, oh, I know exactly the pattern I want to put on the edges. And so we have lots of crosshatch nested shape dies: rectangles, squares, ovals, circles, hearts, labels, hexagons, banners. We have long rectangles that'll fit slimline cards. And then we have a new, like a 5x7 crosshatch labels and rectangles set. So lots of choices on the crosshatch. If you go on our website and just go to the shape dies, you can see them all. But when I do them where they alternate between, the crosshatch is a pretty distinctive kind of pattern. And so where's the thing? So when I design them, I'll do score line, then one with the crosshatch, then score line, then one with the crosshatch, and alternate them down, so that when you're not doing crosshatch on crosshatch on crosshatch when you layer them all up. So the black ones just have a score line, a decorative score line, and the yellow ones have the crosshatch. And then the next size up would have crosshatch, and then the next size up would have, yeah, you get the idea. Anyway, okay, so what we're going to do to make ourselves a honeycomb for the front of the card is we're going to now glue these 3 together, overlapping just the black. Okay, so just the black to make a honeycomb kind of. So we're going to need it on here. I need it here. Okay, and then we will have a group of 3 that will fit-ish on the front of that card. It will come very close. I found, well, actually mine, today it's kind of fitting, but I found on mine that I had to trim the black just a little bit. It was getting in the way of my closure over here. So if you need to do that, what you could do is just start it at the thing. And then, I guess it depends on the angle. Oh, that's what it is. It depends on the angle. Well, I'm going to do what I did before, which is put it at a pleasing angle like this, and then cut off a little bit of the black. Okay, so let's see. If I do it about like this, start that on the edge, then I'm going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit of this black off. Okay. There's our little sort of handmade hexagon, or handmade honeycomb. And then in your pre-cuts for this class, I asked the kit makers, let's just get everything out here, to cut you some pieces out of the Flutter charms. some bees and some flowers. Okay, so there is this small honeycomb that's in the Flutter Charms set. So let me show you that set again. That's a cute little set. So it has a little honeycomb, and then it has the bumblebee or bee. I don't know if it's a bumblebee really, and a butterfly and a dragonfly, and then a couple of flowers. And those are charms. So when you want to dangle them off of a card, remember that sports card we looked at had one of our sports charms on them. They have a little hole so that you can dangle them. And on pop-ups, that's kind of fun when they, you dangle them off of pop-ups. But you don't have to use them as charms. You can absolutely cut those holes off and just use them as standalone elements. So for our card today, we're not going to use them as charms. We're just going to use them as standalone elements. So let's go ahead. Oh, I should say right away, I asked the stores to make sure that your honeycomb had at least 2 hexagons left in it. Okay, so if yours hasn't been weeded out yet and you're punching out hexagons over the trash can, make sure you keep 2 of them, or there might just be 2 loose in your kit, because those are what we're going to use for the centers of our flowers. Okay, so the flowers for this are going to use the hexagons that came out of the center of that honeycomb. And let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, so, and that's mirror card, black mirror card on the black. Just love. Okay, then let's put together some bees. All right, so you've got 3 bees to put together. I'm missing a bee body. There it is. Okay, so let's find all the pieces for our bees. Here's what you've got. You've got these eggs, these yellow eggs. Those are the bodies of the bees. And then you've got the overlay, which is the black mirror card that has the little charm hole at the top. Okay, and so you're basically going to glue those over those yellow ones to fill in the bee. And then each one is going to get a set of wings. So you've got wings here. You can make them into sets, where you've got a left side and a right side. Left side and right side. Okay. Oh, all right. So I think the easiest way to add the yellow to the back of the bee is just to put my glue on the back of the bee around, in the oval section, and then basically just on the table here, lay it down over the top of the yellow egg. Fill that in. Okay, so it's real close to the same size, but it's just a little, the yellow one's just a little smidge smaller. So you don't have to be exact, but you have to be close to exact. I'm just basically looking at the outside edge of my bee overlay to get that over the yellow. Okay. Oh, dry's clear. I was going to say dry's clear. All right, so 3rd bee. Okay. All right, and then the wings are going to take a second to set up on that mirror card. Okay, if you're using glue, I mean a little glue dot, like a what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, like a glue dot. Those can be good as a dry adhesive for adding those wings. But the wet adhesive, the glue will work, but you just have to give it a second to set up, or you can clip them. So I'm just going to make them and set them aside so that glue can set up. All right, so I've got my 3 bees. All right, so what I did with this honeycomb that came out of the Flutter Charms is I basically used it in 2 spots by basically figuring out kind of where it could go and then taking the leftover and just gluing it somewhere else. Okay, which I guess we could have done before I put this on the thing, but I don't think I did before either, so I'm just doing what I did before. So I'm just basically going to decide where to snip that. Looks like I can take this little chunk. Let's see if I can show you this little chunk off. Okay, and this little chunk, I mean, it doesn't matter, it's just decorative, so however you want it to go, I'm going to do it like that. let's do something like this. Then I've got this leftover bit, and I'm going to take the cut edges out to the edges of my hexagons and let the full ones be towards the inside. Okay, now I have 2 dogs. They're ganging up on me, saying, please feed me. Okay, and then a final decoration for the front will be a bee. And again, since we're not using it as a charm, I'll just trim off the charm hole at the top and then just glue that onto my honeycomb wherever. Now, oftentimes in class, the student will ask me, well, could I use a pop dot underneath that? And you could on the front of the card, that would be fine, other than the fact that this is already so thick of a card. So I don't know if you want to add thickness to it, but it's your card, not my card. So if you want to, you can, but I did not. I just glued it flat onto the card like this. Okay, and then inside, now if you are one of the people that is missing this color cardstock, then you're not going to be able to put your hexagons in here until you get that hexagon cut. So, but that's easy enough to add later. So I'm going to do it now, but just know I understand that you may not have that cardstock yet. But if you had anything in your stash that would coordinate with any of these colors, it doesn't have to be this lime kind of green, this sour apple green. Put anything there if you wanted to finish this card up before your cardstock arrives. Okay, and I put that there, and that's just a place to sign the card, write your personal greeting. Okay, and I did it with flat top and bottom and just centered, but like I said, whatever you think is best. And then as just a little embellishment, in that lower corner, I added the smaller of the 2 flowers. And the other flower I glued over here so that it would cover up the seam. Okay, so you might have to rotate that flower until you get 2 petals that are going across the thing. Or with that being polka dot paper, you could even just take an extra little piece of the polka dot paper if you had a hard time covering it with the flower. The flower should work. Okay. Card is ready for cubes. Alrighty, let's make some cubes. Now, once again, I asked them to give you 6 number 8 rubber bands. You're only going to need 3 unless one goes flying across the room or you break one or whatever. So you have leftover rubber bands for your next 6 cubes, right? You got 3 from this one and 3 from the last one. All right, so we're basically going to make our cubes again. Now this time we did use the 100-pound smooth cardstock. So this one's not the 65-pound, it's actually the 100-pound. So you have the option to actually create the cube completely and decorate it after. I mean, I still think it's easier to decorate them, you know, while they're flat, but well, I don't know. I don't know if I think that. I guess it doesn't really matter. It's whatever you want to do, but you have options for this one. Whereas when you use the 65-pound, you have to do them in the right order. Okay, so if you have forgotten, we're doing a valley fold in the middle and then mountain folds next to it. Now you can always do a valley first if it's easier. You're going to see the difference in this 100-pound stock. It's not as quick to fold as the 65-pound was, but basically we're going to seal those little valleys shut on each one. So you do have to start. Now, one thing to know about this, I didn't say it on the first one. You know, you should be seeing all of your score lines. If you were to get it turned over, I think you would know right away because you can't see your score lines. You may see some scuffing from your cutting pads. You really, they only work if everything starts exactly the same. So in other words, these two, when you start, have to be exactly the same. You can't have one flipped over because then the tabs don't line up right. So you always have to start from matching pieces. Now, if you're worried about it, I think I say this in the assembly video, you can, since you're putting decorator pieces on it anyway, you could make sure that you have two that are identical and then put like an X or something, you know, to remind yourself, okay, this way is up. So you could do that with your pieces. I usually just go by being able to see the fold lines really easily on one side, and I just always have that side be up. But you could do it that way if, you know, you were worried about getting one flipped over or whatever. Once you have your valley sealed, you can't flip it over anyway. It would be very evident by the fact that the shelf would be on the outside of the cube. Okay, so we're going to seal those shelves. Okay, and if you don't have green cardstock and you don't have a suitable substitute in your stash, then you're just going to make 2 cubes today, and you'll come back and make your 3rd cube. Okay. Right, and then the green one. Well, I guess they're both green. One is more spearmint and one is more lime. I just find it's quicker to do it assembly line like this, you know, doing the same task kind of 6 times in a row. It's just easier. Okay, once all of the shelves are sealed up, the inside shelves, then if you remember, we go around and we work every single fold in the piece as a mountain fold. Now I'm finding with that 100-pound, I like to break the fold by going towards myself first. It's just easier. So I break it by going towards myself, then I immediately reverse it. I didn't have to do that on the 65-pound, but I'm definitely feeling it on the 100-pound, that it's easier to break the fold towards myself first. You hear Katie. Poor Katie. And Katie and Lucy, they're old. They're Puggles, Pug Beagle mixes. You saw their pictures on the first one. Lucy is 15. And Katie, who's a Christmas baby, is 14. And they have lost most of their hearing, so you can't even really call them. They can hear a whistle or a loud clap. That's about all. So I still talk to them because, you know, I forget that they can't hear what I'm saying, but in the one sense it's good because Katie's no longer scared of fireworks or thunder because she can't hear it. But in the bad sense, you can't call for her, you know. And she's a loud snorer. I can hear her snoring right now. They want to be in this office with me if I am in here, period. They are inconsolable if they cannot be in here with me. They'll scratch at the door and whine. Okay, so just going around working all those folds. Okay, so we're doing exactly what we did on the first one. If you recall, the tab has to connect to a side, so you can't connect a tab to the tab. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so tab connects to side on those cubes. Tab connects to side. Okay. That goes for all of them. Okay. All right, now the spearmint are going to get the polka dot spearmint paper squares. Okay, and then the flower ones are going to go on the more lime green kind of cube. And we'll get those pattern papers on, and then we'll get the cubes put together, and then we have to orient them before we can do the rest of the decorations. Okay, because this one has to, because we're gluing them inside a card now, so direction matters. So this one needs to fold down this one this way, this one needs to fold down this way, this one needs to fold down this way, so that they'll fit inside the card in the flat position. Okay, so we'll put the pattern paper on because that's the same, on all four sides, but then we'll need to figure out the direction of them and which side is the bottom before we carry on with any other decorations. Once again, just a good practice when you're adding these, even though this is 100-pound cardstock, so these decorator squares are not needed for strength, but it doesn't hurt. So I still use my best practices of putting my glue all the way out to the edges when I glue those on, so that they can help the cube stay nice and strong. Okay, and then the spearmint ones. One of the reasons that we did decide to do these YouTube videos on our channel instead of doing them through Stampin' Scrapbook Expo this time is because with Stampin' Scrapbook Expo, we were limited to a 2-hour video. And so on the design end, I had to kind of keep the projects a little simpler and, be more time sensitive on the design. And we wouldn't have been able to do something like a class like this where we've got 6 cubes in it with that kind of time frame. Or I would have had to cut out a lot and said, oh, we have to do this as homework. You have to do this as homework, So by putting it on our own YouTube channel, then we don't have those limitations anymore. And we can let it go as long as it needs to go, I guess. But generally, if you come to one of our Zoom classes, it ends up being a couple hours per card. I mean, you're there for 4 hours to do a 2-card class. But we do them start to finish. You don't have any homework. You finish them completely. Using classes. Okay. so now after the pattern paper is on, for the squares anyway, we'll do the triangles after like we did before. You can flip them over and do the rubber bands. So one way to do the rubber bands is to bring the two rubber band shelves together, and then you can go around and into both sets of holes at one time. Or you can put your rubber band in one set of holes and then stretch it across and into the other set. So it accomplishes the same thing. So whichever way is easiest, feels most natural, get those rubber bands in there. Okay. Once the rubber bands are on, then you can use the other tapered tab to connect the other side of the cube. Okay. Okay, then if you recall, for the small ones, we have to first collapse the cube in the opposite direction, and then you have to hold it while you do those tabs. So it starts like this. You take these opposite corners, push it until you can flatten it, and then you have to hold it until you get all four of the small tabs connected. And we do want to fold those little small tabs so they're on the inside of the cube so you don't see them. Okay. So wherever this is a good example. So you don't want to fold it to the outside because you'd see it. You want to get this triangle out of the way and fold it to the inside. And then it's connected behind there. Oops. And if this is your first time making surprise cubes, it might not be as seamless as I'm making it look the first time, but like I do like to encourage my students, especially if they're new to a die, this is the hardest it's ever going to be. And then when you go to do it the second time, it'll be a little bit easier because you've done it the first time. And it's amazing how, you may even have noticed if you're crafting along with me here that even getting to the second set of cubes was easier for you than the first because you've done it already. So, and again, if you've got clips, you can also use clips to hold your whole cube closed while you're working if that's easier. See, this one didn't set up over there. Okay, there's number one. Okay, so just carry on. In those cubes. Again, if you want to use clips, one thing about the little quilting clips is they do leave a little mark on it's small, but if you really don't want to see a mark at all, you can also look to things like chip clips or like these kind of industrial looking, whatever those kind of clips are, because you'll see that they do leave little indentations. I don't mind because it saves me having to hold the stuff, but again. Okay. Alrighty, getting close. Getting close to. Oh goodness. This one's like really strong. Sometimes the rubber bands are different. Even within a set, you know, I've found that before where some rubber bands might be a little tighter than others. This is how my fingers look every day from the glue that I squish out. Trying to think of what else I could tell y'all. I know it's kind of quiet, but yeah, you get these long classes and then, you know, I don't know what questions you would have because I'm pre-recording this. In the Zoom class, I can ask, you know, hey, what questions do you have for me? But on YouTube, basically just have to hear me and my dogs. I think all that extra water that I put in my paper towel is definitely showing on my glue. Because you can add water to that glue and it'll thin it out, but it'll also make the dry time longer. And sometimes you may want that, but for a class I really don't. So I'm a little perturbed with myself that I saturated that paper towel so much that it's, you know what, let's just leave my glue out for a bit. Let's do that. That's a good idea. Okay, so now we've got 3 cubes. I haven't trained them yet because I was trying to give my glue a little extra time. But if you recall, you just take your fish lips and bring them into the cube instead, and then give it a good press. So you're going to feel the difference in that 100-pound stock versus that 65. These are going to feel kind of just thicker, you know, beefier than those other ones. Okay. For a card application, like I was saying, you know, you could put them in a card and let the triangles come outward if you wanted to. I just think I prefer them inward. I mean, they just end up being on a smaller footprint for card making. And then, I don't know, I just think I like the looks of them better when they collapse inward. But that's me. That's just me. Okay, so now we've got 3 cubes and we're going to decorate these. Now, the first thing we have to do is figure out which side is the bottom for our bottom cube. Okay, so remember it only folds down one way. So you can put it on the table and kind of see if you can collapse it to the back. And if you can, then you've got a good location. And if you think this is pretty enough to be your front, then this is going to be the bottom of that cube. So that will actually be glued to the card so I can put bottom on that. Okay. All right. B for bottom. All right. So that's going to be the first one. So why don't I I guess we better put our triangles on. We have to put our triangles on too. Shoot. I was hoping to be able to assign some of the busy work like I did on the last one. That's going to be a little bit hard to go in there, I suppose, and add your triangles after. So, okay, like colors. Let's do like colors on see, this is what's nice about YouTube, because those of you who are like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that and I'll come back. You can just fast forward right through me doing it when you come back. I'll just try and do it kind of fast, because you could always pause me too if I'm going too fast for you. Just going to get these on. I'm not taking as much time to be precise in my placement as I normally would. But I also don't think anyone's going to care what the sides of my cubes in my stacked cube card look like. See, this is one thing I will say about you all cutting your own kits that can have me sometimes not be considering the time involved in you doing that work, because you've had to do the cutting. So like if I'm cutting kits, you know, I'm probably going to simplify and only have, you know, the big triangles on these sides and not the big ones and the small ones, you know, because it's more cutting or whatever. But then with you guys cutting them, I can be like, oh, look how pretty this is. Let's add this. Let's add that. And next thing you know, but I think the trade-off is good. I think it's good that the students cut their kits, also because that also requires me in some respects, but also get the benefit of getting really nice handouts, you know, with full instructions, because I can spend my time doing that instead of cutting everybody's triangles for them or whatever. So you get better instructions, better handouts when you do the cutting. Okay. I'm missing one. These ones. Now, someone I believe on the Peeps group had asked, could you use double-sided adhesive tape behind your pattern paper, you know, to cut things like this out so that they would be sticker? And sure, you absolutely could. You know, anything that's going to be glued all the way down, you know, you could absolutely do that. Adding double-sided tape. I usually buy like a giant roll of it, you know, so you could cut through those and then those would already be stickers. But Okay, this one, the one with flower paper, doesn't have any small triangles on it. These ones do. They have the small triangles on them. So let me just glue those on real quick. Sorry to those of you who are not doing it with me, but just looking forward to the next step. You have to fast forward, I suppose. Sometimes people ask me, I'm trying to think what else I can tell you while I'm doing this busy work. Sometimes people ask me, how did you get into die design? Or maybe pop-ups in general. So I've always been a fan of pop-ups. I've been making pop-up cards, as long as I've been crafting. And one of the things that I had as a summer job when I was in engineering school was doing CAD drafting for an engineering firm, just like on the weekends and stuff like that. My future husband and I both had that job. And so I learned how to use CAD, computer aided drafting programs, pretty well during engineering school. So then after college, I just loved to craft, and it was just a hobby or whatever. I did a lot of rubber stamping and stuff. I was in like a stamp club and everything. And I used to make pop-up cards, and I would use my CAD program to draft templates for them that I would print out for. So if I was going, like, let's say I'm going to lead, the group at Rubber Stamping Club this month, and we're going to make a pop-up couch, whatever. I'm just picking something. And so I would draft up a template for it and print it right onto the back of the cardstock. And the solid lines would be cut lines, and the dashed lines would be score lines. And they would come with their X-Acto knives and their rulers and their embossing tools. And I'd teach that card or whatever. So I used to make a lot of pop-up cards by hand, but then also I would use templates that I would draft. Okay, so then fast forward again, and I was working as a licensed artist for Creative Imaginations, which was a big scrapbooking company out of California. They don't exist anymore, but they licensed a lot of artists, and this was in the early 2000s. So I don't know. I'm going to age myself, but 2003 or something like that, somewhere around there, 2003 to 2006, something like that. And I was just designing paper and stickers and rub-ons and things like that for scrapbooking. And but I would do a lot of teaching for them. So I would teach at all the big events that they used to be really big events that you would go to for scrapbooking. The magazines would put them on, like Creating Keepsakes would put on one that was called CKU, Creating Keepsakes University, and they would have like 4 of those a year. And the manufacturers would bring in instructors and teach classes and stuff for a weekend. And so I was their main instructor for doing events like that. And then they started sending me to Europe to teach at some events, which was like super fun. Oh my gosh. And what I found when I would go over to Europe and teach is, you're always like looking for something fun to do or, something different. So I decided to teach like an interactive layout class where I drafted up the templates, right? Just printed them on the back of the cardstock, and they had to bring their X-Acto knives, and they loved it. So I said, I might be onto something here. I might be able to combine, my two loves here. And so it was actually at one of those events that I was at, teaching with these templates that they had to do by hand with their X-Acto knife and their ruler and all that stuff. And then I got approached actually by a representative of Sizzix to said, hey, we can make these into dies. So, and thus came my career of converting my templates into die designs. So yeah, that's the history there. Okay, I did it. I've added my triangles, and I've got my first one that's the bottom one, but I still have to make sure that it's collapsing to the back like this. So this is the direction I want it in, because I'm only going to put the decorative honeycomb piece here and here. I'm not going to bother putting it on the back where you're not going to see it. Okay, and obviously not on the bottom where I'm going to glue it down. So making sure that I've got that first cube so that it collapses to the back. Okay, that's really important. If it's not collapsing to the back, just turn it around. So it's collapsing to the back. And I'm going to go ahead and glue two of my honeycomb squares on there. One on the front and one on the top. Okay. I leave it to you to decide which way is, you know, I didn't pay attention to that as to whether they all go the same way or they're all pretty. Okay, so there's my bottom cube collapsing to the back. Okay. All right, now this one's going to be my center cube, and it's important that this one collapses to the front. Okay, so let's just get, okay, so I don't want to mark it with a B because, well, it wouldn't matter. Someone would have to turn the card over to see your B, but only a portion of it's going to glue to this one. Okay, so it's not, you know, technically you could see if you had a marking underneath there. So I'm not going to mark it, but I'm just going to note that it's important that it folds to the front. Okay, and the way once I've figured out that I want it to fold to the front, okay, then this is the front of that piece in the stacked position. Okay, and then that one's going to get this one here. Let me just find something to, well, no, because that's pink. All right, let me just glue my stuff on. All right, look, figuring out collapsing to the front. So this is the front. I'm going to put that hexagon on there. Okay, collapsing to the front. So collapsing so that the hexagon ends up face down on the table. And then that's going to get that hello. So that's out of our word set 6. And we're going to put that hello right over the top of that. Unless you're changing this out to be a different card, you know, if you don't need hello, you can just skip that. But put your, and I put it at a little angle, but that's up to you. Okay, so now we've got our second stack there. All right, that's the only decoration on the second cube. Okay, then for our third cube, we want it to collapse to the back again. So, okay, I make sure that's collapsing to the back, and then it's going to be the front and the top that get the honeycomb pieces. So just basically we're just repeating what we did on the bottom one. Okay, it should be the same where it folds down and it has the this one has some ink on it, probably from my tape. Okay, so the top and the front get the honeycomb pieces, honeycomb squares. Okay, so there's our top one, and we'll add the bees after we get it in the card. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. There is actually a picture of this. Those of you who cut out your or printed out your instructions, I even gave you a picture of this where I kind of clipped it all together, and you can see what we're going to do is we're going to take our bottom cube. It's got the bee on it. Okay, and we're going to center that, and we're going to have it be about, I don't know, an inch or so from the front. Okay, and it's just going to be centered in the card. All right, so about an inch-ish, this far. Okay, we're going to glue that down. Now you want to glue this down really well because you definitely don't want this flying out of the card. Oh, unless you do want it flying out of the card, but I'm assuming you don't want it flying out of the card. So I'm just going to do it by eye, about here. If you cut your paper just like me, it's about on the edge of that little blue flower right there. And I'm actually going to make this one straight. Okay. So see, I mean, it's straight as, I mean, I'm not getting my ruler out and measuring it, but it's just the the base is glued down and it's in the center, I don't know, an inch-ish or so from the front. So you can see how much is left over here. Okay. All right. Now I want to glue my hello cube at a little bit of an angle, but what's important is that I put it in a spot that it stays in the card. So let me clip mine down just because it'll make it easier. Will this one reach? Almost. Almost. Okay. What we want to do is we want to glue that in such a way that when it folds down face forward, this corner doesn't get into your gusset. So that's going to change the angle of it. Does that make sense? So you kind of almost have to do this in the, now if you don't have a clip, you can still hold it. So I can hold this one down. Okay, remember this is going to go right here. And this is going to fold this way, and this is going to fold this way. It has to stay in the card up here, and it has to stay out of the gusset right there. Okay, so that's going to, a pencil would be really good for this. That's going to set where it can go on the top of that cube. See, I give myself a little line to follow there that I keep it, you know, there. And then the only thing I want to glue down is the section of this cube that's going to hit that cube, right? So probably the easiest way to do that is put the adhesive here on the top of this cube. Okay, something like that. All right. Then I'm gonna, well, let's see, let's do it in the popped up position first. Then I'm gonna carefully close them both down because I can still wiggle the top one to make sure it stays out of the gusset here, that I can close the card and that it's not sticking out of the card over here. And you're gonna have to hold it for a second. I mean, as soon as you let go, I mean, or maybe let it come up really slowly, because it's gonna try and fly off of there on you, you know, if your glue isn't set up because you've got two rubber bands launching it. So, you know, give it a good press before you let it come up. But then it'll be on there. Okay. All right, and then our final one, which also collapses to the back. Once again, we're going to get our stack down. Okay, well, here, let me do it this way. It's going to attach to the top of this one, something like this, right? So then you have considerations too about keeping it in the card over here. Less about, it's not even close over here. I don't know if my original was. I guess I did it at a more angle. I angled it more so that it got close to that. So you could angle it more if you wanted to get close to that. I mean, it's up to you. But it looks to me like on this one, if I want to keep it in that card, that my corner is essentially like that. Okay. Then I can add my glue in that overlapping area. Okay, and remember, you're putting it on so that it's collapsing to the back. So this is in the front, this is on the top. So if you have it turned like this, it's the same. Never mind, it's the same. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's this way or if it's this way. You've already set it appropriately. Okay, so I'm going to get that into my glue. Oops, sorry, let me make sure I'm on the camera there. Okay, so I'm going to get that into my glue. This is going to be fiddly, but I'm going to attempt to collapse this one. Collapse this one, collapse this one, make sure everything's in, and then mash it, mash it, mash it until that glue sets up. Okay. Don't fly off of there. Oh, yay. There it is. Okay. Ta-da. That looks good. I think that's so fun. Can you imagine somebody getting that card and it all flying up at them? Okay, we've got two little bees left. Neither one of them are going to be charmed, so I'm going to cut off the little holes. And then where these go is really kind of up to you. Let me just show you what I did on my original. I basically put one bee up here and one bee here. And you know, they can fly higher than the cubes. In other words, just use glue with however much you want attached to the cube. But they can hang off the edges, so to speak. So I'll just do what I did before because I like the way it looks. So one up here like that. And then one on this bottom cube, sticking up this way. And there it is. Did it. That is our finished card. Let me collapse this down. Check. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, and then when they open it, ta-da. So I've had some people on the peeps, you know, maybe wonder if like, well, should I put a little guide inside so then they know how to collapse some stuff? I think people kind of figure it out, but that's up to you. You know what I mean? I haven't really had a problem with people not, you know, being able to, like, even like if I went and handed this card to someone, I think they could figure out how to open it. You know what I mean? But if you and then the closing, you know, it's pretty easy. I think it's pretty intuitive, but leave it to you to decide. But that is our surprise cube card. Now that card is 5 inches by 6 inches, but it's got gussets. So I don't even, you know, 5x7 envelope. You're gonna have to mash it to get it in there. So I would go a little bit bigger, like a, you know, like a 6x9 envelope, or, you know, like a A9 or something like that would be good for it. And that is our second card. And then our first one was our surprise cubes in the slider box with the photos on them. Okay, well, I'm tired. I don't know about you all. I showed you some cards along the way, different slider boxes and stuff, different surprise cube cards. Okay, a couple other things I wanted to show before I sign off. So today we made the slider box the way it was designed, to make a 2 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch box that will hold our surprise cubes. For my February Designer Challenge card, I actually showed on the video how you can construct it twice as wide. And when you do that, then you have room to add a ball character inside. So this little cute bird that I put in it is made with the smallest of the 3 ball dies, which is the mini ball pop-up. Okay, this size is actually big enough to also accommodate the bitty ball, which is the medium size ball. Here's an example of that with this little hippo. Kind of see the difference in the ball sizes there between the mini and the bitty. Now with the mini ball, you've got room in there for appendages. See how those wings stick out in the flat position? With the bitty, not all of the characters are going to work. That hippo, as long as the tail isn't sticking out too far, you might be able to get that hippo in there, you know, because of a snout. You know, you'd probably have to put it in diagonally or something, but it would fit in there. This vampire is also made with the bitty ball, but look what happens when you flatten it. His cape, you know, everything sticks out too far, so you'd never be able to use that one in there. So the mini ball is your best bet because you have lots of room for appendages if you're making an animal, but you can cram a bitty ball in there. What you can't do is you can't get the big one, the surprise ball. That one's way too big to fit in that double wide slider box. So I'll link that in the description box below as well for the video for how you can construct your slider box twice as wide. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you before we go is our next 2 months of Zoom classes. So we have a Zoom class in April and a Zoom class in May, and they are going to be featuring the 6 new dies in our February release. So we've just kind of split those in half, featuring 3 of them in April, 3 of them in May. Now for April, we've got a definite beach theme here. We're going with Beach Bar Tiny House add-ons, our new Word Set 16 Beach Happy Hour, and then we have our beach borders. Now, anytime we feature an add-ons set in a class, that means that there is a foundation die requirement. So in this case, it's tiny house add-ons, which means you also have to have the tiny house pop-up as the foundation die. So when you go to buy your class kit from a store, if you bundle it with dies, you'll just get the 3 required dies. The foundation die is extra, but you can get that from the store if you need it. Okay, so for this month, April, that class is actually not the first Saturday. It's going to be April 15th, I think, or the third Saturday, because the second one is Easter weekend. Okay, so, but other than that, that's usually the first Saturday. So the first card we're going to make is Every Hour is Happy at the Beach. And there's that cute little beach bar, all those little flamingos and crabs and stuff. We're going to make full use of those required dies for this fun card. Okay. And then our second one, we're going to use that tiny house and beach bar add-ons a little differently. Don't worry, beach happy little closure down here, because actually having that pop up a little differently. Give it a shake and up it comes. And so this time, instead of building our tiny house over the fold, like you see here, we're going to actually use that BAM box. That little small pop-up that I talked about is going to be used inside the house to make it pop up. And it'll just be a beach house. Pops up a little bit differently. So in this case, like this. Now, when you first make it, as soon as you open it, it's just going to fly open. But then after it's been sat for a while, you have to give it a little shake. But I think it's kind of fun. It's fun. Even if you have to shake it to get it to open, it's fun. Okay, so just a different way to use the dies. So that's our April class. Then for May, we're going to feature the little twist panel pop-up, really generic die, our new C charms, cute little things there. And then this, I kind of referenced this one earlier, the rectangles and labels crosshatch that actually fits 5x7 cards on the big ones. And then you get these cool labels included in that set as well. And for that one, we're going to make two versions of that little twist panel. We're going to make one, a hello card that is a double side-by-side in a slimline. And we'll use those C charms using some fun photoplay papers in May. Oh, well, and in April, they're both photoplay. And then we're going to do a single, and we're going to switch out and make it a birthday card with a single, and then swapping out and using some of those labels on the little twist panel instead of the rectangles that come with it. So we'll make full use of our required dies that month as well. So that is our May Zoom class 2023. Remember, Zoom classes kits are only sold through the stores. There is no foundation die for this one. If you have these 3 dies, you're set. Anything else we use will be pre-cut for you. So I'm going to, I think, sign off then. Thank you all so much for joining us for our March 2023 virtual class on YouTube. Again, I'll put some links in the description box below for different videos and stuff that you can watch to do the assembly on those dies. Thanks, everyone. Bye.